Dr. S. Shankar is a professor, Department of Physics at Madras Institute of Technology, Anna University, Chennai. His area of specialization is solid-state physics. He has guided more than 10 PhD scholars. He has published more than 50 national and international research papers. He has 28 years of teaching experience.
Welcome to UGC lecture series in solid-state physics. We are going to see topics in magnetic materials in continuation of ferromagnetism that we had seen in earlier episode. In this episode, we are going to study about domains and hysteresis properties of magnetic materials. The objectives are to understand the magnetic spin domain formation, then to study the nature of hysteresis curve, that is BH curve, and the properties of hysteresis curve, then to classify different types of ferromagnetic materials based on their spin alignment properties. Then we see something about magnetic domains in a basic manner. These magnetic domains are the regions of magnetic substances in which the magnetic dipole moments, which we call as spins or spin moments of a free spinning electron in such domains. So, when these domains line up, the substance becomes entirely as a full magnet. That means, in every domain the magnetic spins are aligned parallelly in a natural manner. We have some evidence which supports the domain theory. Very simple cases are like rubbing a nail with a magnet and the nail turns out to be a magnet. Then rubbing a test tube with iron filings produces north-south poles which can be seen with a compass. And when temporary magnets are hit with some hammer or so, they lose their magnetism. That means external excitation makes the material to lose the magnetic property. Then another property of a magnet is that if we break magnet into two pieces, then we get two magnets with north and south pole in each. Then the magnetism of a bar magnet can be reversed by a strong external magnetic field in a reverse order. Then here we see a glimpse of historical development of this magnetic domain theory. First, sometime in 1827, Ampere proposed his domain concept. So, the atomic magnetic moments are due to electrical current which continuously circulates within atom. So, this is what he proposed first. This was some 75 years before the discovery of electron by Thomson. Actually, at the time no charge separation was known. Then Weber in 1852, he proposed that each atom has a net magnetic moment, and the magnetic moments are randomly aligned in the demagnetized state, but become ordered by an external magnetic field applied. And this idea was supported by the existence of saturation magnetization and the magnetic property that is retained in the material, which is called as magnetic remanence. Then Poisson in 1893 proposed that no atomic magnetic moments at all in the demagnetized state, but could be induced by applying a magnetic field HA. That means, if not an applied magnetic field, there could not be a magnetic moment at all in the demagnetized state of a material. Then Irving in 1893, similar to Weber, he proposed that randomly aligned atomic moments in the demagnetized state, but aligned in the magnetized material. Now we see the domain properties of ferromagnetic materials. These domains possess net magnetic moment in each domain, and the orientation of all the spins in a particular domain is not necessary to be parallel with the neighboring one, but normally they are randomly oriented in the initial state, and in each domain there is a spontaneous magnetization, and the material shows magnetic properties even in the absence of external magnetic field. That is the special property of each domain, and this type of magnetization of a particular domain is because of the interaction between dipoles, which are called as exchange coupling dipoles. So, when placed in external magnetic field, it strongly attracts magnetic lines of force. So, all spins are aligned parallel and in the same direction in each domain as shown in the schematic diagram here. And in each domain, of course, the magnitude of spin of every electron, spin magnetic moment of every electron is same in normal ferromagnetic material. Now, the interaction between spins of electrons is an exclusively quantum mechanical effect, and it has no classical analog. And the fact that only Fe, Co and Ni and some other rare earth metals show strong interactions between the spins, and thus ferromagnetism in elemental crystals is due to such interaction between the spins. Now, in compounds, however, many more substances exist with spontaneous magnetization coming from coupling of spins. Now, we have some properties related to the chi versus temperature behavior. In our earlier episode, we have seen that chi varies inversely with the temperature for a ferromagnet. So, susceptibility is of course large and positive for a ferromagnetic material when compared to paramagnetism, and we have derived Curie-Weiss law in the last episode, and we can write chi versus T relation as chi is equal to some constant by T minus theta, where C is the coefficient of 1 by T minus theta in our expression, and this is constant is called as Curie constant, and this is of course the transition temperature or Curie temperature between ferromagnetic and paramagnetic states, and this is also written as Tc sometimes and theta sometimes. And when T is greater than the Curie temperature theta, the material gets converted into paramagnet, and so this theta serves as a limiting temperature between ferromagnetic and paramagnetic states of the magnetic material. And the domains possess the property of hysteresis, and the material gets divided into small regions called domains normally, and the extent of the domains produce magnetism along the same direction of applied field depends on the nature of the interaction between the domains. Now, the examples are again Fe, Co and Ni. These are the prominent materials which possess these ferromagnetic properties. And another class of materials is antiferromagnetic materials, and these materials have their spin alignment in the antiparallel manner, that is shown here schematically. That is, the magnitude of spin along one direction is equal to the magnitude of spin along the opposite direction, and alternatively these are placed, so that if there are even number of electronic spins or spin dipole moments, then they will be exactly aligning equal in number in both the directions, that is positive direction and negative direction, so that the net magnetic moment along positive direction cancels the net magnetic moment along the negative direction. So, for even number of such spins, the net magnetization is 0, and if there is odd number of such spins, then there will be an excess magnetic spin moment which is uncompensated, and that will contribute for the net magnetism, and this will be a feeble magnetism. Considering the smallness of that excess one, altogether on an average we can consider that the net magnetic moment is 0 in such materials. Susceptibility is very small but positive because of this reason, and we have a susceptibility relation as this Curie constant C divided by T plus theta. Initially susceptibility increases with increase in temperature, and beyond that temperature theta, the susceptibility decreases with the temperature, and this expression holds good for T greater than theta. And the theta normally is called as Curie temperature in ferromagnetic materials, and in antiferromagnetic materials this is called as Néel temperature. Now, at Néel temperature the susceptibility is maximum. So, this is a transition temperature at which material starts to lose its magnetism beyond this temperature, and below this temperature the magnetism is maximum. Examples are FeO, MnO, Cr2O3 and some salts of transition elements. Then ferrimagnetic materials is another class of ferromagnetic material. This is a special type of antiferromagnetic material. The spin alignment is here in the same manner as antiferromagnetic materials, but the magnitude of spin along one direction is smaller than the magnitude of spins along the opposite direction, so that the larger magnitude spins contribute for the net magnetization of the material. So, the spin alignment is antiparallel but different magnitude as stated here. So, they possess net magnetic moment, and these materials are called as ferrites, and these are the materials which are used in particularly magnetic storage devices, and the magnetic susceptibility is very large and positive. Although we say very large, this is actually intermediate between the normal ferromagnetic and antiferromagnetic materials. So, the examples are ferrous ferrite, then nickel ferrite. So, we see about the domain theory of such ferromagnetic materials in a closer manner. This diagram gives schematically how the spin directions are present in different domain areas of a ferromagnet. So, this is net spin is orienting along this direction. That means, there are several electronic spins or spin magnetic moments orienting along this direction. Similarly, this is a region where the net direction is this. So, there will be a random distribution of such domain magnetic moments along different directions in the demagnetized state or before application of any external field. Now, lots and lots of domains in ferro and ferrimagnets. So, this is something about how the magnetic domains develop in size. So, here we have positive and negative, they cancel, and here this is the uncompensated and so on. Now, if we apply field along this direction, then we see that the boundaries here keep moving. So, domains form for a reason in ferro and ferrimagnetic materials. They are not random structures. So, the central domain size changes, and here due to the application of external field, larger and larger spins are orienting along this direction, and here it is getting decreased in the opposite direction, and here it is getting increased in the forward direction. So, this is the direction of applied magnetic field. This is another schematic diagram where the domain is containing parallel magnetic moments. So, this is a kind of quantum mechanical description which is brought in over here, and these materials retain magnetization in zero field, and such case will arise if the material is once subjected to external field and then the external field is removed. That is one thing. This is due to the remnant magnetism which is present after interaction with the external field. So, quantum mechanical exchange interactions favor parallel alignment of moments, and this is a schematic of it, and we have examples of iron and cobalt. The present slide explains how the magnetization is happening in presence of an external field. This is another example. Here we see magnetic materials tend to form magnetic domains as indicated here. Each domain is magnetized in a different direction, and the domain structure minimizes the energy due to stray fields. It is because the thermodynamic total energy is actually minimum under that condition. That is why the magnetic spins are tending to be along the same orientation and maintain parallel alignment or in that particular configuration of alignment in that particular region. Then, if a magnetic field is applied, then this diagram explains how the area or the domain volume in which the net alignment is along the direction of the applied field. So, if you apply a field, then it changes domain structure like this, and the domains with magnetization in the direction of field grow. We call this as domain growth, and the other domains which have the directions along the other direction than the applied field shrink in size, because the magnetic spins align along the direction of the field in the neighborhood of the domains. So, the spin changing over process is displayed here. So, the upspin is flipping over in this manner under the influence of external field, and this boundary is called as Bloch wall and Néel wall, depending upon whether it is a ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic or ferrimagnetic. There are two ways for aligning the magnetic domains. One is growth of the domain, that is, the domain volume is increasing, and the other is rotation of the domains, that is, the domain region as such is rotating and trying to align along the direction of the field. This is the second stage. And so, if you apply a strong field, then it can saturate magnetization by alignment of all the domains directions along the same direction or along the applied field direction, and we get a single large domain with single direction of magnetic field. Now, here we see something about the hysteresis curve, that is the so called BH curve. It means, in general, hysteresis means lagging or retarding of an effect behind the cause of the effect. So, here the effect is B and the cause of the effect is H. This is called BH curve. So, hysteresis in a magnetic material means lagging of magnetic induction along with the applied field or the magnetizing field. So, the BH curve takes a shape like this, and the dot line here represents the initial magnetization. Before magnetization, that is, in the demagnetized state, there is no magnetism, and so when H is 0, B is also 0, and if we initially increase H, then along the dotted line the magnetism or the magnetic flux in the material, net magnetism increases, and for large H there is a tendency to approach a saturation. Then if you revert the field, then it will come back in a different direction, not retracing the dot line, and there is a remanence or non-zero magnetism retained in the material for H 0. And if we reverse the field, then the retained magnetism is lost and the entire process is reversed. So, there is a negative saturation for negative field, and if you further reverse the field and go towards positive direction, it goes like this, and this is an ideal BH curve. And the value of magnetism that is retained in the material for 0 applied field is, or after removal of the applied field, is called remanent field or magnetic retentivity. And if we increase the field in the opposite direction further, that destroys the retained field, and that field is called coercive field. Now, this gives some behavior of how this curve is traced out and so on. So, initially the curve starts here at 0 and goes like this, then it comes back here, then after reversal of the field, then it goes like this and so on. And the maximum saturation is MS here. And the same characteristics are explained here, and it tells how the spin domains are changing in magnitude and direction and so on. Yeah, this is something about the remanence here and this coercive field, and this gives the direction, net direction of magnetic moments in the domain. So, for this positive direction, all are aligned positively at the saturation point, and in the reverse direction, in the reverse saturation, reverse orientation of magnetic spins here. And this diagram gives different areas of hysteresis curve for different materials, and this hysteresis curve is very thin here, and here this is for a normal ferromagnetic material, whereas this is for a strong ferromagnetic material. And here you can see the remanent magnetism changes from this weak magnetic material to strong magnetic material, and the coercive field also changes. And this type of material with thin hysteresis curve is called soft ferromagnetic material. So, in this case, both the remanent field, this MR and HC, that is coercive field, both are smaller, whereas in this material both the quantities are larger. Now, here is a comparison of the hard magnetic material properties and soft magnetic material properties based on the hysteresis curve. So, for soft magnetic materials we have low hysteresis loss. Actually, the area of hysteresis curve is a measure of energy loss, magnetic energy loss, if we go for magnetic cycle application. So, that means magnetic cycle means if we apply a magnetic field along one direction, then reverse it to the opposite direction and come back, then we call this as one cycle of magnetization, and the area covered in this hysteresis curve is actually a measure of energy loss. So, soft magnetic materials have low energy loss or low hysteresis loss. Here they have high or large hysteresis loss, and here domain wall movement is difficult, here it is easier, and so on. So, and these hard magnetic materials are very difficult to demagnetize, and soft magnetic materials can be easily demagnetized, and because of these properties, these soft magnetic materials are useful in electromagnets and so on. Whereas for permanent magnet applications, hard magnetic materials are used like this. Now we come to the summary. So far in this lecture, we have understood the nature of how magnetic domains are formed, and the BH curve, hysteresis curve, is also analyzed and understood, and the characteristics of different types of ferromagnetic materials like normal ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, and ferrimagnetic materials are also understood from a basic point of view, and depending upon the BH curve pattern, we can classify materials into soft and hard magnetic materials. That also has been understood. Now we have a few questions to ponder. So, what is the reason for domain formation in ferromagnetic materials? Then, what is the significance of BH curve or hysteresis curve? And how to classify soft and hard magnetic materials based on hysteresis properties? And thanks for your patient listening.